Three cane Corsos showed up on the end of Margaret Collins's driveway on a Wednesday morning in October, sitting in a perfect row like they had an appointment. Her neighbor, Gerald, called her first. "Meg, there are three enormous dogs in your driveway, and they look like they belong somewhere important." Margaret was 52 years old, recently widowed, and living alone in a four-bedroom house in Savannah that her son called too big for one person. She went outside in her housecoat with a cup of coffee and looked at them for a long time. Then she opened the gate. Her son laughed for about 6 minutes when she told him. He called her back to make sure she was serious and then laughed again when she confirmed that she was. Her daughter said, "Mom, this is grief talking." Her neighbor Barbara said she would be calling animal control by the end of the week. That was 19 months ago. Not one of those people is laughing anymore, not even close. Margaret Collins had been a hospice nurse for 26 years. She had spent her career sitting with people in the last chapter of their lives, which meant she understood something most people spend their whole lives avoiding, that the hardest rooms are the ones that used to be full. Her husband, Dennis, had died 11 months before the dogs showed up. Pancreatic cancer, 7 weeks from diagnosis to the end. Fast and brutal and completely without warning, the way the worst things tend to be. He was 57 years old. He used to sit in the second chair in the kitchen and drink his coffee too hot and talk about the garden he was always planning to plant. After he was gone, she sat in her chair and left his empty, and somehow that felt more honest than moving it. She did not plan to adopt 3 cane Corsos. She had not planned anything since November. Planning felt like a conversation with a future she wasn't sure yet how to inhabit. They had been left at the end of the street, Gerald told her later. Whoever brought them had driven away before anyone saw the car. 3 male cane Corsos, all from the same litter by the look of them. The black one was the largest, maybe 140 pounds, with a wide chest and ears that had been cropped and stood perfectly straight. The gray-blue one was leaner but taller, 137 pounds, and he sat with an authority that made him seem in charge of the situation, despite the situation being that he was sitting in a stranger's driveway with no plan. The dark brindle one was the youngest, 133 pounds, and he was the one who had walked directly to Margaret when she opened the gate and pressed his enormous wrinkled head against her sternum and simply stood there. She called animal control a second time from the kitchen while all 3 of them sat in a row on the back porch and watched her through the glass door. She was on hold again. She watched Nero sit down very slowly and put his chin on his paws. She hung up. She named them while she was still on hold. Hector for the black one, because he had the look of someone who had already decided how things were going to go. Cassius for the gray-blue one, because of that particular authority. Nero for the dark brindle one because he had walked straight to her and made a choice, and she respected that. She fed them from the bag of dry pasta she had in her kitchen pantry, which was all she had that was remotely appropriate, and drove to the pet store at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday morning in her housecoat with 3 cane Corsos in her minivan. The woman at the register did not say anything. She rang up $340 worth of food, bowls, and beds without a word. The phone calls started that afternoon. Her son, Daniel, called from Atlanta. He was 29 and worked in finance and had strong opinions about responsible decision-making. "Mom, you just got 3 massive dogs. You live alone. What is your plan here?" Margaret said her plan was to get off the phone and feed them dinner. Daniel said that was not a plan. Margaret said that it was, in fact, a good one and ended the call. Her daughter, Christine, took a softer approach. "Mom, I understand you're lonely, but 3 cane Corsos is a lot. Have you thought about a smaller dog or a cat?" Margaret said she had thought about it in the amount of time it took Nero to press his head against her chest, and that had been enough. Christine said she was going to come visit. Margaret said, "Please do." The neighborhood had opinions as well, and the neighborhood was not shy about sharing them.
Barbara, 3 houses down, told the HOA president within 48 hours. The HOA president, a man named Frank, left a voicemail referencing weight limits and property values. Gerald, who had initially called about the dogs, told her quietly that 2 other neighbors had been talking. Apparently, 3 cane Corsos was a conversation in Savannah. Margaret listened to Frank's voicemail, set her phone down, and went to sit in the backyard, where Hector, Cassius, and Nero were lying in the evening sun like they had owned that yard for years. She listened to Frank's voicemail a second time, set her phone face down on the kitchen table, and let them stay. The first month was an education. Cassius claimed the couch immediately and thoroughly. He spread himself across its entire length on the first night, and when Margaret tried to reclaim her half, he looked at her with an expression of such genuine incomprehension that she found herself apologizing to a dog. Hector had specific ideas about the kitchen. He sat directly in front of the stove every time she cooked, not begging, simply supervising, as though quality control was his responsibility and he took it seriously. Nero slept in the hallway outside her bedroom. Every night, without being asked, he positioned himself exactly 3 feet from her door and did not move until morning. The empty chair in the kitchen was still empty, but the kitchen was not quiet anymore. If you're still here and haven't subscribed yet, I'm not gonna lie, that stings a little. Hit that subscribe button right now. You'll want to see where this goes. Margaret's insomnia, which had arrived with the grief and never left, began to loosen around week 5. She tried everything the grief books suggested and the things the grief books did not suggest, and none of it had touched the 2 a.m. hours in any meaningful way. She had spent 11 months lying awake in a house full of Dennis's absence, and now there was presence everywhere, heavy and warm and completely without agenda. She noticed it the way you notice the absence of pain, slowly, then with a kind of stunned relief. Nero's breathing outside her door, Hector's occasional restless shift in the hallway, the small sounds of the house being occupied by something other than silence. She stopped leaving the television on when she went to bed. She started sleeping past 5 a.m. She started cooking actual meals instead of whatever required the least number of steps. She started calling Dennis's sister on Sundays, which she had been meaning to do for months. She started going outside in the mornings, walking all 3 of them down to Forsyth Park in the early light, before the neighborhood fully woke up. People stared. She noticed and stopped caring about it around the 3rd week. Hector walked like he was leading a small army. Cassius observed everything. Nero stayed at her left side so consistently that she began to think of it as his spot. Stories like this one deserve to reach someone who needs them today. If this moved you, pass it on. The night that changed everything happened 4 months after they arrived. It was a Tuesday in February, the kind of cold that doesn't usually come to Savannah but does sometimes, unexpected and serious. Margaret had gotten up at 2:17 a.m. to get water, which she always did, the habit of a light sleeper who never quite trusted her own stillness. The hallway at the top of the stairs was dark, and she had not turned the light on, and her foot caught the edge of the rug Dennis had always meant to secure to the floor with tape and never gotten to. She fell down the first 6 stairs. She hit the wall at the landing, and she stayed there. She lay still and tried to understand what had happened and where she was and whether she was hurt. She was cold. The stairwell was dark. She was not unconscious for long, maybe 4 minutes, maybe 7, she wasn't sure. When she came back, Nero was lying against her back, pressed full length, all 133 pounds of him using his body heat to keep her warm in the cold stairwell. Hector was at the bottom of the stairs, and he was not looking at her. He was looking at the front door. He was making a sound she had not heard before, not a bark, lower than that, longer. Gerald heard it across the street at 2:31 a.m. He told her later that he had woken up thinking someone had left machinery running. He described it as a sound that did not make sense to ignore. He came to the door, rang the bell, heard nothing human, tried the handle, which Margaret had not locked that night for the first time in a year, and found her on the landing. She had a hairline fracture in her left wrist and a bruised shoulder and a bump on the back of her head that the ER doctor said she needed to monitor for 48 hours. She was home by 6 a.m. with instructions and a prescription and all 3 dogs in the backseat of Gerald's car because she had refused to come without them and Gerald had not argued. Daniel drove down from Atlanta the next day. He didn't call ahead, he just drove. He walked into the house and found his mother on the couch with her wrist wrapped and Nero's head on her lap, and Cassius pressed against her right side, and Hector sitting on the floor directly in front of them, like a guard who had not been dismissed. Daniel stood in the doorway for a moment. He didn't say anything. He went to the kitchen and made coffee in the wrong mug, which was very much his father's move, and he brought her a cup and sat in the second chair, the one that had been empty for 11 months, and he said quietly, "I think I understand now." Margaret did not say, "I told you so." She was a hospice nurse. She understood that some realizations needed to arrive on their own time. Today, the second chair in the kitchen is still there, but it does not feel empty anymore because Hector stands next to it every morning when Margaret has her coffee, which is close enough. Daniel calls twice a week now instead of once. He asks about the dogs first. Christine visited last month and sent Margaret a photo of herself on the couch with Cassius on her lap, which is technically an impossibility given the size discrepancy, but Cassius had made it work, and Christine was grinning like someone who had been proven wrong and grateful for it. Barbara from 3 houses down has not called the HOA in 7 months. Frank has not left another voicemail. Margaret still walks them to Forsyth Park every morning in the early light. Nero still takes his spot at her left side. Hector still leads. Cassius still observes everything. The house is not too big for one person. It was never too big. It was just too quiet. And sometimes the thing that fills a silence is not what anyone expected or planned for, or would have chosen if they had been given a calmer moment to think it through. Sometimes it shows up at the end of your driveway on a Wednesday morning and sits in a row and waits for you to open the gate. Margaret is glad she opened the gate. Would you have opened the gate or called animal control? Tell me in the comments.